After surviving a train crash on a strange and dangerous world, our unlikely hero has a change of heart. He's lucky to be alive at all. He's going to be turning a new leaf, though, and live on as an ambassador of peace. No more violence. No more hurt. Our hero in question was once known as a commando, revered for his best friend, a semi-sentient turret. Fearing for its safety, though, he won't be letting it leave his side. Not wanting to make it jealous, though, he'll also be avoiding use of any items that elicit similar feelings of uniqueness. Axton is well known for being a sturdy person, and will be reinforcing himself with shields procured in this wild place to make it through, without having to resort to uncouth methods. Of course, no man of his resolve would ever be seen firing a gun or throwing handheld danger devices. Turning them in to be disassembled by a responsible gun destroyer such as Marcus should be fine. Gotta make ends meet somehow. And while of course he has his hands and feet to defend himself, neither would be becoming for such a peaceful person. Of course, being the collected person that he is, Axton is also an extremely careful driver. Also, he doesn't have insurance, so he can't really afford to hit anything. Money as tight as it is. While pacifism can arguably be pretty badass, I won't be using bar bonuses, because they're not fair to the poor folks of these lands. To reach a level of common ground, you must first be willing to humble yourself. Of course, I can't control those around me. While I wish they could see the light of my ways, I'm unable to stop them from hurting each other, and even themselves. It is a dangerous place after all. Should I accidentally run into any problems where I may have hurt someone physically or emotionally in a way that I could circumvent, I'll be resetting the area, because them's the breaks. Now this only really leaves me with Spike and Nova Shields. Those don't spawn until much higher levels, so veterans of Borderlands 2 challenge runs probably know where this is going. That's right, we're off to let Mordecai farm XP for me for a few hours. I didn't want to make things too easy though, and stopped farming a little bit early to carry on. Not because I screwed up and broke the XP farm or anything. I'd never do something that stupid. I purchased some shields of the appropriate level, and after literal hours, the run can finally start. Claptrap's eye was stolen by a local bullymong. I told my new robot friend that I'd have a word with them about it. Being the level that I am, even Knuckle Dragger folded to my charms, and handed it back. I'm sure he feels bad about it after the whole affair. I gently asked for people to clear out of Sir Hammerlock's town so that he can help to repair Claptrap, and he performed some emergency repairs on my new, non-violent companion. I'm off to see a guy named Captain Flint about a ship that he allegedly stole, when my power went out. The locals here seem to all say hello by trying to strike my face. Odd custom, but I shan't judge. I say you two, might I ask that you please open the door for me so that I may speak with your boss? They accidentally shot me a few times, but I let them get their aggression out before my Nova Shield helped to calm any remaining tensions. Now where's the button on this thing to open the gate? Well, that wasn't it. Don't touch me. You really don't want to touch me. Well, I did warn you. I wasn't sure how to get Flint to come down for a discussion, so I went to meet him where he was instead. He wasn't particularly receptive, but he was willing to continue the conversation, which I appreciated. We finished up our talk with the poor guy tuckered out. I explained that we only need to borrow it, and he can keep it afterwards, since we're never going to use it again, which he found agreeable. While heading towards Sanctuary, I might have had an accident. I'm not honestly sure, since it didn't seem to do any damage. But I can't afford to pay for its medical bills, so I reset just to be sure, and proceeded to run to my destination instead. I failed to talk the local bandits into not attacking Reese in time, and he kicked the bucket. I'm not sure what the bucket did to him, but I got the power core he was carrying and fueled up Sanctuary's shield generator. Now if only I could plug that into my own. I failed to help the town mechanic make the city fly. Then I failed to find Roland, because he was kidnapped mid-sentence. He later informs us that he was in the middle of urinating when he was grabbed. Couldn't have waited to have that chat for just a minute? I make my way to Frostburn Canyon to ask the Firehawk why they kidnapped my new compatriot, only to find out that they had no hand in it. In fact, as his on-again, off-again partner, she wants me to find him as well. So much so that she fails to teleport me to where I need to go to find him, and makes no subsequent attempt to do so. Why she's sitting on her hands here, I have no idea, but I best get going if I'm going to get anything done around here, since nobody else is. To sneak stealthily into the Bloodshot stronghold with nobody noticing my presence, I'll first need to get a car to disguise myself. Something they'll never suspect. I spent way too long getting the cars in the dust to stop moving long enough to catch up to them. If I'm in the open for too long, they'll kill me every time. But if I can get close enough, I can use their own car as cover against them. I also got some help from some of the locals to convince them that it would be a really funny prank if I snuck in, making them think that I was a Bloodshot, but I actually wasn't a Bloodshot at all. They thought it was so funny that they gave me all of the parts that I needed, and it definitely didn't take an exorbitant amount of time. Next, I would need a costume to blend in so they wouldn't immediately suspect something was off after I got out of the car. Or I could just run in and reveal it right away. They didn't seem to think it was very funny and sent out Badmaw to kill me. I really didn't commit to this bit hard enough. Our conversation went in circles for a while until I got a pity laugh out of him. Not something I really wanted, which made me feel awkward, and I decided to leave. By this point, I have some health regen when my shields are full, which is the only reason this run got anywhere, and is one of the main reasons that I chose Axton. With only 6 wasted skill points, the rest are all devoted to health and shield buffs. The final build could have had more shield regen, but health was by far my main concern by the end. With that in mind, it might have been smart to pick up the extra maximum health, but I am not that. I didn't think it was likely, but I got to get down with one of the Bloodshots, proving that we really can get along after all. The big circular room is infamous with good reason. Little cover, lots of enemies and all. For a moment, I thought I managed to run by Angry David, but he shot and killed me. Luckily, there's apparently a respawn station right past the door, and they don't re-aggro from this side. So I ran like my life depended on it. Because it did. I managed to make it to my savior cutscene. I mean, Roland. Never mind, he's being kidnapped from his original kidnapping. Which, if you think about it, was covered up by a fake kidnapping. Man, this kid really needs a nap. I bravely took on this area's enemies one by one. It was hard, but Axton is a man of conviction. A man of courage. One who would never be stopped by a mere army. He would stop at nothing to verbally fight through— well, they took Roland. Yeah, I didn't think I was going to be able to save him in my current state, but I couldn't even ding its shield. I have absolutely no idea why, but I thought I just needed more time to reason things out, which was not even remotely true. I was doing next to no damage and could barely survive anything. This whole run was a really weird balancing act. If my shields are too durable, then I can't physically do damage quickly enough to counteract things like shield regen. But I also need higher level shields to actually do damage. And I need my shield to go down to do damage, but once it does, I don't have anything to protect me. It feels like having no shield at all, while also not having anything but a shield to work with. This balancing act was nightmarish. I ended up doing a lot of XP farming in various bits of side content because I broke my main source of experience and I desperately needed to be able to take a hit. Especially for times like when the warden spawns in 4 badass loaders. My general strategy was pretty straightforward. Take some hits until my shield broke, get it into cover, and hope that I can regenerate my shields and break it again before the enemy gets theirs back. So I needed to get cover that didn't have any nearby enemies quickly, efficiently, and realistically, I got lucky. Despite my objective being to destroy loaders, I didn't. Roland just kind of ignored them, so I did my best to do the same. Man, I need to find out where this guy buys his shields. The dude's invincible. I meet him for real this go-around, and as thanks for spending a lot of time and effort saving him, he's having me go waste more of it doing odd jobs. Fucking asshole. Given my level, I thought the Varkids would all die should they be set ablaze, but the game apparently stopped caring that they were no longer living. I mean, I convinced them to sing in their sleep to wake Mordecai from his rest. Yes, sleep singing. I met with Tina, the world's deadliest 13-year-old, who somehow has a ton of supplies for things like food and drink, but was also recently robbed by bandits? Is it a convenience thing? Am I getting your stuff back because you don't want to, but you totally could by yourself? Because otherwise, how do you survive living surrounded by these guys? And if you are that dangerous, who is dumb enough to steal from you specifically? There are explosives everywhere with your branding. You would think they would know, unless you're just having me steal something from someone. Whatever the case, I collect the young lady's things, and she makes the necessary modifications to the missiles, which is just stuffed animals. Where did you get these on Pandora of all places? We install a new stop for the train so that I may board. Odd-looking train car, but I met with one of the attendants as to inquire about the menu options of this fine establishment. I am simply famished. He was really fucking hard. He constantly throws you away with his spin attacks. He can kill you if you're not careful, and he gets a shit ton of shields back from his drones. He doesn't attack while making a new drone, so dealing damage is challenging. Also, can we talk about the fact that him punching you in the face isn't considered a melee attack for the purpose of spike shields? What the fuck? In my first several attempts, I tried making use of the fire here to damage myself, but its hitbox is really inconsistent. It sometimes just won't damage you, even though you're standing right in it. Additionally, the damage it does is sometimes really low, and sometimes will kill you insanely fast once your shields are down. You might be wondering why I just didn't use the loaders, but the Nova Shields all will most likely kill the loaders that spawn, and this isn't a quick fight, so I needed something that would last indefinitely. I was in the fight for so long during some attempts that the loaders did in fact respawn, which was delightful. Turns out he can also spawn repair drones! I don't think I knew that. They need to be gone as soon as possible, or I literally cannot beat him. Who signed off on these and why? A lot of the time, if he hits you with a spin, you'll fly far enough back that the Nova won't hit him. If you hit into an object, you'll stop, but it seems like he can almost push you deep enough into the wall that the Nova still just can't hit him. It follows line of sight, and it can't see shit on a good day. This little rock here, though, is the MVP of this fight. If you position yourself right between it and him, there's not much he can do but swing his fists wildly. Once the repair drones start coming out, it's a race between them and you getting hit in the face. You need to get hit in the face as fast and hard as possible. The fire can sort of work as a supplement when all else fails, but this really is just a case of having enough damage. I genuinely loathe this fight using these methods, but eventually I managed to get my order through. What the fuck, man? I didn't order another battery? Whatever, I'll just take it home with me. I'm sure someone else will want it. Why can't anyone ever get my order right? Some lady I just recently met, though, that called me special once or something, told me to put it in Sanctuary's shield generator, and I, of course, immediately trusted her. I used it there because I still can't improve my own, but then I found out that she's betrayed us all. I would like to point out that she was technically telling the truth here.
Sanctuary's shields may never need to be recharged again.
This is why you never trust the Fae! We helped to get the place flying, despite even Scooter saying that it wouldn't work. If we can barely keep the shield generator going, I have to ask, where the fuck are we going to get the fuel necessary to keep this place in the sky? Are we going to be relying on Lilith's powers? Because she's not exactly reliable. See, this is what I'm talking about. How did this even happen? Why did you kick me specifically out? How many people did you just strand in the middle of nowhere? I made my way to the fridge, which I ran through as fast as my legs could carry me. For the record, start to finish, it was about a minute. Then I ran through the Highlands to get to a fast travel station. Why this one specifically, I have no idea. But the lady that betrayed me gave me another compliment, and this whole journey has been emotionally exhausting. Craving validation, I of course immediately trust her again. She has me go to get a supply beacon to call in another fast travel station for some reason that couldn't possibly harm my associates or myself. I beeline through a bunch of loaders without fighting them or the constructor that spawns in, all to have maybe a more aggressive conversation with the thresher that stole my beacon. Listen, I've had a long day. If you could just hand it over, I'll be out of your hair. Tentacles? I don't know or care. I just want to go home and take a nap. My shield beats its shield, and just a little more. So I eventually wear it down, and it relinquishes my ticket to Dreamland. I make it to the town of Overlook, but even ignoring that most of the people that live there are dead, they just straight up don't have enough people to be classified as a town. You'd have to cram so many fucking people into each and every house to even stand a chance at meeting that definition. It's at this point that I'd like to point out that the beacon seems to have given the Thresher a shield, but doesn't seem to have one of its own for reasons that are beyond me. Also, even Krieg knows how to repair this incredibly complex Hyperion tech when it breaks. How and why? Do the Vault Hunters just disbelieve the bullet holes away? What's going on here? It's not like they have spare parts lying around. Also, I'd like to point out that in a shield-only run, I did next to nothing to actually protect this beacon, and it was broken until it became invulnerable for story reasons. If you think about it, I caused one more shield to spawn in the world, which is arguably fitting. Granted, it may have been more fitting to use myself as its shield. Regardless, despite having its health lowered and fixed repeatedly, it never managed to be half as broken as this run made me. I eventually waited long enough to ignore the objective, and I didn't want to work my way through the number of enemies that spawned, so I reloaded the game and escaped at a leisurely pace. I put in a good word for Angel since she was so kind as to tell me nice things like the processes by which she betrayed me, and everyone agreed that she's a stand-up sort of person. Once again for my efforts, I'm rewarded with more work. To politely request the vault key from Jack, I'll first need to go find Mordecai's lost pet Bloodwing. He thinks he last saw her in the Wildlife Exploitation Preserve, but he wasn't really sure where. Not a problem, I can ask the locals. It wasn't a particularly pleasant experience, especially with some of the more aggressive folks here, but I made my way through, bit by bit, directed in almost a linear fashion toward her. She's a lot bigger than I remember. Now, you may think that this fight would be a nightmare. You'd be right, but you might also think it. In all seriousness, though, this wasn't that bad compared to the last time I fought her. She can still one-shot me through Healthgate for reasons, and her damage over time is incredibly dangerous, but she has one huge weakness. She actually has melee attacks. Spike shields are really good until they're not. Here, they get a chance to actually do what they're... Well, they probably weren't meant to be your only form of damage, but they were meant to do something, right? One of the most dangerous aspects of this fight is that there are skags that will continuously spawn in. It's pretty easy to accidentally jump on them or be thrown into them. Both are an instant reset. Otherwise, her dive bombs and damage over time effects were incredibly dangerous, because fire damage is balanced around you having a shield, and damaging her with a shield means that I often didn't have one. Despite that, I think her electric phase was the most dangerous, since she could really easily melt my shields. She has a big AoE that buffs the living skags near her. Electricity makes them incredibly fast, and melts my shields and health like a motherfucker. To combat this, I used the bunny hop glitch that basically just makes most melee enemies completely lose track of you, and I waited until they were no longer buffed. Damage that I took was recovered via Axon's health regen, and so while this whole thing was really slow going, it was very manageable. She then, needs to rest after tuckering herself out. I get back home to deliver an upgrade for Claptrap, and I'm once again denied the sweet and rewarding feeling of a high five. The sharp smack of hand against hand. Accomplishment and brotherhood, I just need a minute. Wasted opportunities aside, I now have to go to recruit Brick. I mean the Slab King. I sprinted through 1,000 cuts and got to his initiation. Things turned into an incredibly aggressive game of peekaboo. At the back of the area is a great place to hide and pop out of. Now just imagine doing that for entirely too long, and you pretty much have the full experience. Just don't forget to wait for your slow-ass health regen to top you off between every boo. Every fucking boo. The game then bugged out, because of course it did, and enemies refused to come down. So I found a route to go up on my own and take them on their own turf. Just pretend that I survived that little maneuver. Not actually sure what just killed me. But they finally started coming down, so I got them after the respawn. The respawn that I definitely didn't have to do. Shush. Brick was so impressed and afraid of me that he refused to look me in the eye, fearing my impending wrath. Let me just sneak that note in there. Come on. There you go. Thanks. This next section has you following Brick as he tries to teach me how to punch things. I don't think he got the memo. Anytime I could have actually done damage, he'd come running in to hit the thing that might have hit me. Meaning even if I wanted to, I couldn't really help here. Which is fine with me because I didn't really want to. Realistically, because Brick is responsible for breaking the shields of the mortar beacons, the beacons themselves, and the loaders that spawn, this part sort of just plays itself. And to reiterate, I'm okay with that. Pandora's fresh health for today? Gotta go kill Jack's body double and take his watch. Did you enjoy the Warden fight with its huge shield regen? Would you like less cover than the last time? How about having your target run from you constantly? Well, welcome to this nightmare. I love to farm some XP, and I'm not really sure what happened here, but it happened kind of consistently. The weird shit you see on this planet. I tried a lot of different methods. I managed to do a number on him with a spike shield, which seems like it might be the way to go if I could keep him alone. But clearing out enemies is so slow that I genuinely wasn't sure if I could do it before they respawned. And because he relocates, I wasn't sure if I would just run into other issues. And if I messed up, he would fully heal. So this fight was a hell of a puzzle to figure out. Luckily for me though, this game's code is hot garbage, and his AI just stopped doing anything near a turret that I could use to break my shield, so just kinda worked out. Much like almost every other location, I ran through here grabbing the objectives and not fighting a single enemy that I didn't have to. Now I get to sound like Handsome Jack, who honestly doesn't sound that different from Axton if you ask me. Now I can finally go ask for that vault key. The first problem, as always, was a constructor. I started the fight by having it face to the side to make it more manageable. I then discovered that most of the enemies in the area don't aggro against you while you're over here. Staying outside of its melee range is vital because that thing absolutely slaughtered me on loop. You can avoid its nukes by standing near the door you're trying to get through, which is nice to have since I can't shoot them. This leaves you entirely open to any enemies that it spawns though, so there's some luck involved with what it does or doesn't spawn. Across the way though is a good place to duck for cover while waiting for your health to regenerate for the 100th time this fight. Luckily this one doesn't have a shield, so this fight was at the very least more defensive than offensive, which was a welcome change of pace. Up next are the turrets that are immune to damn near everything. They can't be hurt by Nova shields or even most unique shields like the Impaler or Cradle. That being said, they can actually be broken by the antagonist. Arguably, bullet reflection both is and isn't shield damage. Well, how would one obtain the antagonist? Because this is a normal mode playthrough, there are a few hoops you'd have to jump through. To start, I believe you'd have to make use of the Cradle. Believe it or not, I managed to get it on my second try farming Henry. Due to the rules of the run, I never got to actually use it for anything other than this demonstration, but, you know. If you go to Tina's DLC, you can lure a rock golem to fight and kill Mr. Bunnypants guy. From there you can go into Flame Rock Refuge. You then need to destroy 2 blimps. To do so, you can lure an enemy over toward you. Just before leaving their aggro range, you need to have them hit you so that you can hit them back to keep their attention. Once you've done that, you can destroy this setup with either the Cradle or a Nova Shield. The problem comes with the other one. You need to hit the skeletons multiple times to keep their attention. You can do that. You can theoretically have just enough health regen to make that doable at lower levels. Just need to get over health gate range and keep them interested. You then need to lure them all the way over to the outcropping here, and when you do, I think you'd need to have one of them strike you as you jump, similarly to a grenade jump. From there, you may be able to throw the Cradle far enough to detonate the charges, but I wasn't able to. You can get there with a grenade jump, but that's against the rules. You can also, of course, just shoot it, but that's also against the rules. Because I didn't need to do this quest to beat the game, I just couldn't justify why I would be able to do any of these. Why do all this, you may be asking? Well, according to the wiki, you can use Tina's slot machine to sometimes get Seraph Crystals. On a different save, I spent a couple hundred Iridium without ever seeing any drop, but allegedly you can get 3 if you roll 3 d20s on a slot machine and then have the subsequent roll be a 19 or a 20. If that's true, then you get 3 crystals. And for the low price of well over 100 of those, you can purchase the antagonist in a new game. I similarly don't know what levels those spawn in at, but I can tell you that you can theoretically level up as high as you want/need by completing repeatable quests until the heat death of the universe. All of this is to say that it might actually be possible using unique shields. It genuinely might be doable if you're incredibly lucky and more patient than the Mountain Stone. I swung in their general direction. If you think about it, I didn't hit them, I just waved hello and they took damage. This isn't possible without a unique shield, so this is the best I've got and the most simple solution. Next up came the blockade for many a run. The incredibly challenging, super hard, definitely impossible. I sat behind it until it died. My best guess is that it just doesn't spawn in any enemies because the map is already full, and nothing else aggro's here, so I just waited until it nuked itself to death with its slow, painfully slow damage. At the very least, I got to sit back and relax while it died, rather than pulling my hair out trying to avoid anything. Speaking of, though, next up was the bunker. Well, first it's turrets, but they really weren't an issue. 2 Nova Pops were plenty to settle them. But then was the bunker. There were a lot of encounters that gave me trouble, but none like this. A lot of the time it just doesn't do damage, and the loaders are incredibly inconsistent. The first day that I fought this, I died an hour and a half into my attempt by being thrown over the edge of the arena. In case you ever hate yourself enough to try this god-awful fight, make sure you know exactly what loaders are spawned. None are worse than exploders and hot loaders. The fire damage overtime they give is enough to absolutely kill me at my current level, as soon as my shields go down. The exploders are self-explanatory. Bolt and power loaders are both experts at throwing you off of the arena, and with attempts taking well over an hour, that's a fucking problem. Do you know what else is a problem? Range! The range of my Nova shields were the biggest issue that I faced pretty damn consistently. The bunker can just choose to stay out of range for large sections of the fight. I could only really hit it from a couple of positions, which meant just waiting for it to be there. A lot of the time it can't hit you nearly enough to break your shield, so even those positions just aren't always good enough. Or what if it drifted slightly out of range, just as your shield went off? Well, too bad, because it happens constantly. You can get relatively good damage in if the loaders just happen to be in the right area and actually focus on you and not the buzzards, and also happen to be the right kind of loaders, and also don't just fuck off and leave. This whole fight was a clusterfuck of bullshit that I never want to do again as long as I fucking live. You might think that having its big-ass gun come out in the later phase would be bad, but no, it was a godsend. It actually does enough damage to help your shields break, because survivability is both a gift and a curse through this whole hellhole of a run. It makes it even more fun when you finally get to the easier phase of the fight and then die. Or hey, what if one of the two positions you can actually damage it in, it can put itself under you to bounce off of said gun, meaning you have to reset the fight. The best advice that I can give for this fight is don't. Just fucking don't. Cover is a pain in the ass to get. I was constantly looking over my shoulder to check for enemies that I couldn't deal with, always looking at my health knowing that if I dropped too low, I got to restart, and if I had a nickel for every fucking time that I fell off. I'm not sure how long I spent in total on this fight, but I know that on my second day of trying, I woke up, brushed my teeth, and I spent 6.5 hours straight trying to kill this fucking shit stain before it went down. I didn't want so much as a goddamn snack before I killed this fucker because I couldn't emotionally handle the thought of having to come back to this. I couldn't rest. I couldn't eat knowing that when I was done, this was the life that I would come back to. This was the world I would find myself in. This was one of the most painful boss fights I've ever been through in my life. And I fucking hated every second of it. But the bunker went down. God damn did it go down. And I wanted to cry. I waved hello to a big pipe, and up next was a lot of combat. Way too much combat. I died, I cheesed some enemies, I hated a lot of it. But then came the last pipe. It can take damage from shields, but breaking your shield is a pain in the ass here. The vents kind of do damage, and sometimes you get a fire proc to help it along the way, but they also seem to shoot off randomly. To break a shield, you either need one of a really low level, or you need to take the brunt of the vent, get a fire proc, and then get hit again right away. But that means you need to get lucky enough for it to go off in the correct place, because I swear these things don't follow a pattern I could find. If you're wondering about the shock field generators, they can't hurt you after the last enemy dies. It was hellish to keep one alive even. Roland and Lilith both deal damage to them, so this was mostly luck that I managed to keep one alive at all. I managed to even deal damage to the pipe with my shield, and it didn't do anything. Because these things are super consistent, and not buggy at all, I ended up destroying it by breaking my own shield because I couldn't. For reference, here's my playtime for just this run. I just don't have the energy left to fight this game anymore. Not on this front. Roland died, and I guess I should cancel my order from his shield supplier. Lilith charged Jack head first, and despite being a seasoned combatant, didn't even notice his arm going at her throat. There's heat of the moment, and then there's just blind stupidity. Then my game crashed. To the Iridium Blight!
Get the Sawtooth Cauldron.
Okay, never mind, the Sawtooth Cauldron. I was dreading this section before even starting the run, but you can apparently hide behind the elevator really safely. Engage, peekaboos! Took a while, but this was genuinely easy.
There's nothing Mortar loves more than his buzzing boombringer. If you destroy it, you'll be so pissed he'll blast boombringer to bits.
Seems like a rational course of action. Then came time to destroy more buzzards. I used the elevator for cover and essentially just hoped that they would come close enough to damage them. It took a while, but they're no bunker. I took the explosives that Mortar was kind enough to let me use to barter for safe passage across a bridge. Weird toll, I know, but it's what they wanted. And then discovered that there were some really dangerous pipes running through here. I tried to help in operating them, but I guess I turned the valves the wrong way because the pressure ended up being way too high. They hadn't been maintained in a while, so I got my tools and I was on my way to see what I could do, but the whole thing just blew up. I didn't even touch it. I then went to the local library to see about checking out an atlas because my friends and I are lost as fuck. Saturn didn't seem to want me to visit, but I ignored his harsh words and made my way inside. I guess he was angry enough about the whole thing to kill my frame rate though. No, that's okay, I'm finding everything alright on my own, I don't need help! By this point, my combat strategy of popping in and out of cover was pretty much locked in. I thought the surveyors might be a problem, but they came plenty close to other enemies to just get blown up with them. I then ran through Hero's Pass until my best shield showed up, my meat shield. I bravely watched him do everything for me until he had to recharge. I valiantly ran before a super badass loader could spawn. And my legs carried me with the fortitude of 1,000 warriors past the badass constructor before it could spawn. Seriously, I've never had an easier time with this section. I did this on my first try. Jack seems like he might actually be challenging at first. After all, his clones do good damage, and him hitting you isn't melee damage. Honestly, spike shields just stopped being viable at some point, and I'm not sure when exactly, but I gotta ask, why? Jack is relatively easy to handle in his first phase by going to the sides of the arena where his clones just don't aggro. The lava can be used to drop your own shield. The turret that he throws out is incredibly dangerous, and the loaders that spawn in can also pose an issue. Or he could just bug out like his body double. That works too. Honestly, I didn't even try to break this fight. He just did this all on his own. I think there was a misunderstanding or something because he opened the vault. Sorry, if I didn't explain properly, as asking if you could give me the vault key. I don't need it, but my friends think it's neat. The final boss was not a great experience. The warrior constantly puts itself under you to force restarts. Its tail attacks, for instance, will pretty much always trigger it. Its stepping on you often does. Also, it does a shit ton of damage and can carry you off the arena. Because fighting this boss legitimately is often pointless though, I found a safety rock. You can throw yourself into the lava to damage it when it comes near you, and get back to the rock relatively safely. Even better though is when it does stomp attacks in the back of the arena. It throws you up in the air, which is plenty high to Nova its face. You can then get back behind cover relatively easily to get your shields back. It can walk across the arena from here, but standing under the cover will protect you from that. It won't necessarily protect you against tail attacks, but they're telegraphed well enough that they're easy enough to run from. Run to where though? Safety rock. Only thing it can hit you with here is ground slams, which can knock you into lava, but it's really not enough to worry about. This fight was time-consuming as heck, and frustrating at first, but once you figure out your battle plan, taking down even the mightiest of alien beasts is as easy as... Okay, yeah, I get it, this run took forever, but at the end of it all, I feel good enough in the run to say that I beat Borderlands 2 with only shields. You're free to disagree, but I don't plan on doing this again. This run was painful, and I wouldn't recommend it to anybody. Oh yeah, Jack is still there. You deal with it. I'm not really even sure what we resolved here. I just got beat up a lot. I got through the whole experience as a professional punching bag. I'm gonna go take a nap. Before I do though, I hope you enjoyed your time here. You probably know how to use social media, and I hope that means I'll get to hear your thoughts now and on any future outings. Until then, remember to stay safe, spread some kindness in the world, and I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day.
No rest for the wicked.
Bye-bye.